and welcome back to Kayla's Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. So, I know I've been gone for a while, and if you can't tell, I'm actually in my brand new apartment, which is super awesome. Same sparkly lights, different background. And so I think later in the week, or maybe next week when the apartment is completely together, I'll be doing an apartment tour and posting it on Kayla's Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, and I have a post about it on my blog as well, Pastel Punzi, which has a link to this YouTube on it. So today, after a long absence from this channel, I'd love to talk about my Disneyland Paris audition experience. So, for those of you who don't know, my biggest dream is to work at Disney in some way, shape, or form. So just recently, I've thought about traveling across the world to work for Disney. You know, I always thought I'd work in Disneyland or Disney World, but you know, it wasn't until recently that I realized, you know, there's so many other opportunities in Shanghai, Tokyo, Paris, that I really should open myself up to. And so it's something that I always have in the back of my mind, and I happened to be looking at the audition page for the Disney website about last week, and I noticed that there were auditions in Dallas on the 14th of August. And so it was like the 11th of August, and I live in Austin, and so I was like, well, should I go? Should I do it? You know, I'm still in school, and I was like, why not? So I moved into my new apartment on the 13th, on that Saturday, and then I didn't have any way of staying in Dallas. You know, I couldn't afford a hotel or anything. So I asked my boyfriend, Joe, if he wanted to come with me, and he was like, yeah, totally, why not? So we like frantically got our resume and headshots printed because I've asked for resume and headshot. And the morning of the audition was at 10 a.m. and we drove up. We left at 6 in the morning, and I drove up, and it was like raining, and we drove up and we got there at around 9:15, 9:30. I was wearing like workout leggings that end at my knees, like a white tank top, and then I have like this pink kind of sheerish overshirt, so it's like I can move in it, and it has all polka dots. It's just really cute, and I really like it. I usually wear it for auditions and dance calls because it looks more put together, but I can move in it a lot really well because it's just like a workout tank top underneath. And then I had curled my hair loosely and kind of pinned it up out of my face, and I had light makeup on. And Joe was wearing sweatpants, a t-shirt, and running shoes, and I was wearing dress shoes. And so we got there, and at about 10 o'clock they let us in, and by the time they gave us in, they gave everyone a number, and there was only about 90 people there, which is interesting because I auditioned for the Disney College program last year just for fun, and there were over 200 people there, so it was a lot different. And I think it was a much more subdued crowd. No one was really singing or energized. Everyone was kind of quiet. No one really knew what to expect for Disneyland Paris auditions. I think that's what it was, and I think that's maybe why there was less people, because the prospect of going all the way to Paris is a lot scarier. And so then the woman leading the auditions was from Walt Disney World, and then she had an associate from Disneyland Paris, and they were the ones that were tag teaming the thing. And so they brought us all into this other studio, and they lined us all up. You know, we just kind of lined up ourselves, and then they talked to us about character work that they want to do. And he said that at Disneyland Paris, if you get the opportunity to go, the living is subsidized, and they pay for your flights to get there, and like you earn so and so euros a week. I didn't remember how much. And he said, but the thing about Disneyland Paris is if you're a character performer, not only are you doing fur, and if you get the opportunity, face characters, but you have to be in all the parades, which is different than at Walt Disney World. At Walt Disney World, if you're a character performer, you are strictly fur and face, and then they have separate parade performers. And Paris, you have to do all three, which definitely means you have to be a really good dancer to do Disneyland Paris. So I was a little nervous because I told Joe that the dancing was super easy and it wasn't gonna be anything hard. But the first thing we did is they talked about, you know, portraying a character and doing, like, being animated and excited. And so they played some music and they had talked us through it was act like a cowboy, act like a pirate, act like one of the 7 dwarfs, and then, you know, you would like walk, turn while you're doing these things, and you would walk and you would act like a villain, act like a princess, and then act like yourself. So just kind of some simple characters. And then, you know, we did it a few times all together, and then they put us in groups of 5, like right away they put us in 5 by our number, and then we would do it: cowboy, pirate, dwarf, villain, princess or prince, and yourself. And then you would come back after you did it, line back up, and they would say, you, thank you everyone else. So they were dismissing people right away. And so through the first 90 people, I think they kept about, I want to say half, a little less than half, probably about 40. And Joe and I made it through, which was really exciting because I got cut first round for the Disney College program once. Although I've heard a lot of different things, that they don't really hire that many people and they're not as lenient. You know, they know that Disney College program people are going to leave, and so they are going to take exactly what they want and nothing else. You know, they're not going to be like, oh, well, maybe we'll keep you for later. You know, they're like, no, you're only going to be here for a few months, so we're not going to. So Joe and I got through the first round, and then they lined us up, and we lined up. Said, all right, now it's time to learn the dance. And the choreographer came out, and right away I could tell that it was going to be harder because we learned the first 2 8 counts in 30 seconds. You know, it was fast. You know, you're learning fast. Like, it wasn't a lot of hard moves. I mean, there was pirouettes and an arabesque and something like that, and it wasn't anything like crazy. Like, I didn't have to have insane ballet experience. It helped that I had musical theater dance experience for sure. But, you know, for the guys were really struggling, and it was, you know, it was a very fast pace. And so we learned about eight counts of a dance, I would say. And she was really trying to help us because we only got one opportunity to do the dance in front of the people who were leading the audition, where when I did the DCP audition, we got 2 chances to do the first dance. And so there's only about 40 of us left. And so after we went over it and over it and over it, and she was kind of like, oh, well, I've given you enough time. Here you go. And Joe looked at me and he was like, I'm not going to be able to do this dance, but good luck to you. And I was like, oh gosh. And I just remember that when I did my Disney College program audition, I had the dance perfect and I was smiling, but I think that I could have gone above and beyond in my facial expressions. You know, I was just like smiling like this. I feel like they're looking for people that are reacting with audiences, and people that are, you know, like when you're doing like something else new in the dance, you could be like, you know, something like that. So I was like really gonna commit with the face, and I felt pretty solid on the dance moves. Like, there was one section, but I was like, I got this. And so I was number 79, so I was in the second to last group to go. And I went and I did it, and I made it through, and I was so happy. And then Joe was in the next group, and he didn't make it through, but he was like, I'm not that crushed, I just wanted to try it. And so he went and waited for me, and then they lined us up by number, and there was about 20 of us left, 20 I would say, 15, 20, and they lined us up and they measured us, which was terrifying for me because I'm like 5'8"-ish, you know, sometimes 5'7", sometimes 5'9", so it's like I don't really know how tall I am, and I really want to be a princess. Like, I'm not quite tall enough to be a villain. Like, please let me be a princess. And so they measured us, and then they had us sit down and talk to each other, and everyone was kind of whispering because no one wanted to interrupt, and they sat down and talked. And something I forgot to mention was at the very beginning of the audition, before, like after he gave his spiel about Disneyland Paris, the woman introduced herself and said she was from Disney World and she was helping him with casting, and that if there were some people that maybe interested her for Walt Disney World and he was okay with, she would kind of tap on the shoulder and be like, hey, I want you to audition for Walt Disney World. So while they were talking, like, they were pointing at people, like, I think he was saying like who he might want and she was saying who she might want, and it was very nerve-wracking. And so then she stood up and was like, okay, so I have chosen 6 people that I'm going to take into the next room, and I would like you to audition for Walt Disney World with me. And then he has chosen 6 people, and then the rest of you are dismissed. And I was like, oh my gosh. So the woman called out my number. I was one of the 6 that she took in the other room to audition for Walt Disney World. And I was freaking out. I like ran, you know, we got to go get our water before we did it. And I like went and got my water and I saw Joe and I was like, Florida, Florida, Florida. And he was like, what? I was like, Florida, not Paris, Florida. And he was like, oh, okay, good. Well, moving to Florida is a lot easier than moving to Paris. And I was like, shh, go away. And so then we went over to the woman and she was super nice and she was like, I hope you're not disappointed. Like, I just really want you for Florida and this is actually easier for you because you don't have to worry about dancing as much. And I'm like, thank God. And then what she did is she took pictures of us. She took a picture of our fan profile and then she had us put in our information, like our phone number, our name, our date of birth, and our email and our number. And then she asked us to do a little video audition, so pick a character that you really identify with or could see yourself playing. And she had us do like a mock thing, like we were talking to a child. So when it was my turn, I chose Rapunzel because she's my favorite. And I was like, oh, hello there, princess, blah, 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 come up to my tower. You know, something that identified that it was me. And then I was like, are you having the best day ever? You know, you just look into the camera and do it. It really wasn't too hard, but I also am a princess party performer as my job, so I have a lot of practice with that. I know some of the other 6 had trouble with that. And of the 6, there were 3 guys, 2 Prince height and 1 Peter Pan height. And then there were 3 girls, me, someone who was about Tinkerbell or Wendy height, or Alice, and then there was another girl who was my height, but she was African American, so she was obviously a Tiana. So I thought it was very interesting that she had picked people who were could play very different parts, which kind of gave me a lot of hope. So yeah, and she thanked us for coming out, and she said, I don't know what this means for you. You'll be getting a call in the next couple of weeks. You know, I have to go back to Florida and I have to do some casting there and really, you know, put my ducks all in a row. We're not really looking for a lot of people right now, but you never know. And so that was about 5 days ago, and I have no idea what this means, but I'm just patiently waiting, and any good thoughts would really, really be appreciated because this is my dream. So hopefully this helps you out. If you have an audition coming up, just know that unless it's Disneyland Paris, you're not going to be asked to do anything crazy dance-wise, and it's the nicest audition experience you'll ever have. They're so sweet and kind. And if you have any questions, comment below. If you have any nice things to say about maybe hopefully it happening, comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.